The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net. What's up, Downers? Happy Saturday, and welcome back to The System is Down. I wanted to give you guys just a little sneak peek behind the curtain of what's going on in the Downers Club. If you're not familiar with the Downers Club, if you're not already a member, the Downers Club is our patron program where you can sign up to help support the show, and in return you get a bunch of free audio content, and some levels you get free merch and stuff like that. It's what really helps keep the show going. For the bonus audio content, we do a couple different things. Craig and I do the Anti-News, where we do comedic recaps of current events. Remzo Martinez of the Remzo Republic podcast and I do Would You Rather Wednesdays, where we play the most horrifying game of Would You Rather that you've ever heard. And we also do Rotten Potatoes movie and TV reviews. We do roundtable discussions of just ranting about movies because we love movies. And we especially love Star Wars movies. So this episode is the Rotten Potatoes movie review of The Last Jedi, which we recorded as a roundtable discussion. We recorded it probably at least a couple months ago. It's been a while, and I've been kind of dragging my feet on putting it out for whatever reason. But then I saw that The Last Jedi is coming out on DVD this week, so I figured, I'll hold on to it a little bit longer and put it out as kind of another Star Wars celebration, as The Last Jedi is about to come out on DVD. This conversation ended up lasting about 2 hours. 2 hours of us just ranting and talking about our love for Star Wars, our love for this movie, how it ties into other movies, all these theories and everything. We didn't talk for that long because we thought you wanted to hear 2 hours of us talking about The Last Jedi. We talked for that long because we just love talking about Star Wars. So this is a free bonus that I'm giving to you guys so you can see kind of what we're doing with Rotten Potatoes and with the bonus content. This is the first hour, the first half of it, and the second hour of this conversation you can get by joining the Downers Club at tsidpod.com/support. Also, with The Last Jedi coming out on DVD this week, I wanted to do a little bit of a promo and then do a giveaway of the movie. So you can sign up for your chance to win a free copy of the movie. There's 3 different ways that you guys can sign up. The first one is by joining the Downers Club at tsidpod.com/support. If you're already a member of the Downers Club, you can sign up by raising your level to a higher level of any amount, and that'll get your name in the pool once. The second way that you can sign up is by going to iTunes and just leaving a nice review, 5 stars, however many stars you're allowed to leave on iTunes. Leave us all the stars, give us a nice review. That's a free way to potentially win a free movie that will take you about 2 minutes to carry out, and it's really helpful to us because it boosts our credibility and helps get the name out there about the show. So there's that, and if you leave a review, just take a screenshot of it and send me the screenshot so I know that it was you, and I'll get your name in for that. The third way that you can sign up is just by going to tsidpod.com and leaving a one-time donation of $5 or more to support the show. So you could win for as little as $5, as little as free if you do the iTunes route. And you can sign up as many as 3 times by doing all 3 things if that's what you want to do. And the winner of that will be announced on our regular Monday morning show on April 2nd. So definitely tune into that episode and find out if you won. So to recap, just go to tsidpod.com/support and sign up for the Downers Club to get the second half of this conversation that you're listening to right now, and a plethora of all of our backlog of audio content, plus all of our audio content going into the future, and that will also sign you up to win The Last Jedi. Or go to iTunes, leave a review, or $5 donation one time at tsidpod.com. All right, that's all my plugs. Let's get into it. Here's our Rotten Potatoes review of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Let's get weird.
Look, it's f***ing rotten, you f***ing idiot. It's rotten!
Rotting potatoes. There is a difference between a good potato and a bad potato.
Dirty, rotten potatoes.
You got a rotten potato?
Gross, dirty, rotten potatoes.
It's rotten!
Potatoes. Potatoes.
No one in this family is hurling rotten anything at anyone.
All right. Well, here we are. I planned on doing this much sooner, talking about The Last Jedi with some friends. I saw it on opening night with Cole, who is also here. Nathan and Jeanette saw it. You guys saw it on opening week, right? Or was it the next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that
opening
weekend. It was like Saturday, Sunday, or something like that.
Me and Dan already did record it's a bonus
We
content.
gave like our
episode.
hot take of it, like
Yeah, like
the night
literally that night, because it's like I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep if I don't talk about this.
We just vented that night, but I've been meaning to do an official review with you guys, and I wanted to get Forrest and Brad back on since they were our Star Wars pals in the Star Wars episode, but we didn't do that.
So do you maybe feel like this was wrong?
No, not at all, because well, Brad was working tonight, and Forrest, his family's data plan was limited.
Right.
So Cole was just here. Okay, so I've been wanting to do this, but I really wanted to see the movie a second time before doing this, and I still have not had a chance.
Let's go tomorrow.
I would love to.
Let's go.
I have a family, but
No, you don't.
and I work tomorrow. So, yeah, I have not seen it, but Cole was here, and I've talked to a million people since I've seen it. I've watched a million reviews, a million videos talking about it. So I know I've pretty much seen it 5 times in my head. And Cole was here. We were just talking about life, and of course, it inevitably turned into Star Wars discussion. So I said, "Hey, let's just go and do this because we're doing it anyway. We might as well record it." So, yeah, if I wasn't clear, Nathan and Jeanette are here, and Cole is here, and we're talking about The Last Jedi. So, no plans here. If somebody wants to open it up, we can just dive into it.
I'd like to start by acknowledging the fact that the movie takes place over the course of literally like 72 hours.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
It's like 24 hours after The Force Awakens.
yeah, it's like the next day or something. It's right after The Force Awakens, and the movie's like covered length of time is not much. It's a few days.
It's bizarre for a Star Wars movie.
Oh yeah, and it takes it. I mean, the scene of where they're at in that quadrant of space, where they're just trailing along in front of the Superstar Destroyers. I mean, that was new. That's different. That's very different. Like,
Yeah.
obviously the main characters have some side quests.
Slowest chase scene ever.
Yeah,
in a
for
movie.
real. And it was interesting. It almost seems stressful.
Yeah.
When I think back on, I'm like it's all right here, and it's really not that much time passing in the grand scheme of everything, which makes it just feel stressful. And that's a first for a Star Wars movie to take place. So much of it take place in space,
Right. Which this movie, I mean, it went off the books in so many ways.
Yeah.
That's just one of them. But yeah, Nathan, Jeanette, you've seen it twice. What's kind of well, let's just start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Somebody open it up.
Oh, I've seen it twice.
Right. Yeah.
I just
Going
remember.
off of Cole's thing, like there's that tension right from the very beginning. We get past the opening crawl, and you see the ships in the distance, but and all of a sudden they start coming in closer and closer and faster, which is something that I made note of because I haven't noticed that in any of the other movies. And it gave me the same feeling of terror and like suspense as the opening in New Hope Star Wars. Like you see the ship just coming into view, and it's going and going, it's still going, and it's continuing to go. This is a huge ship.
The
Oh my
massiveness
gosh.
of the Empire.
And so it's that same kind of tension that I felt during A New Hope. Like, what is going to happen? Because now we're in the middle of a battle, like right now.
Right.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's like it reminisces of Empire Strikes Back, except that the whole time they can't shake in Empire Strikes
The
Back.
First Order.
Yeah, well, in this, the First Order. They can't shake the First Order, and that's something that's never happened. We've always seen our heroes just make the jump to light speed, make the jump,
They can
and they're
escape,
gone.
yeah.
Right.
But not this time.
Now they're out of gas.
Yeah, and not this time. They tracked them through light speed. That's a new thing.
Which a ship running out of gas basically is. I mean, that's not something we've ever seen before either in Star Wars.
There's never been
No.
any
Never think
sort
about
of-
that.
Yeah, I was literally thinking about that just the other day because I'm like, where do we even see them ever fuel anything up? You
Right.
see them fuel up like X-wings.
Yeah,
But
in the Force Awakens, you
never
see
the
the
big
TIE
ones.
fighters in their little bays or whatever,
Yeah.
so who knows what's going on there. But yeah, that's not something...
But there's never
you
been a
think about.
notion of a fuel limit or an amount of fuel that they have that, like, okay, well, we don't have infinite runtime in one of the Star Cruisers. We didn't know that.
And if there is an instance of fuel, I feel like it takes a while because, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've seen A New Hope, but I feel like Han and Chewie were on Tatooine because they were filling up the Falcon. Like, is that why they were there? Because why else would they be there?
I think that
they were getting drunk.
I think there was that Han made mention of like fueling up before leaving. Yeah, when he was talking to Ben and Ben Kenobi.
But they obviously had enough time to like sit and drink and get propositioned and then almost killed and all that other stuff goes on. So it's not like it's fast.
Right. So it must have been. So if the Millennium Falcon would have to hold a lot of fuel, because this is something I haven't actually vocalized with anybody before. I haven't thought that much about it. They always say, like in A New Hope, when that TIE fighter comes past them and they're almost to where Alderaan should be, and they're like, Obi-Wan says, or somebody says, well, that's a short-range fighter.
Yeah.
That there must be.
They couldn't have made it.
How did it get all the way out here? That's a short-range fighter. So that that implies that almost every single man or couple-person ship couldn't get that far into deep space.
It brings the humanness into.
That means that the Millennium Falcon, being a freighter, is able to make deep space travel. So it must have a lot of fuel that it can hold, like these Star Cruisers that we're talking about in the opening and most of the movie of The Last Jedi.
It's like the semi version of ships. Like, it's a semi. It's a freighter.
Yeah.
Right, but the Millennium Falcon is not near as big as a cruiser, obviously.
No.
And so it would have even less of a runtime, but you never see the Millennium Falcon running out of fuel in the, you know what I mean? You've never had, crap, the Millennium Falcon needs fuel. We got to fuel up.
Even when it's been sitting on Jakku for 25 years.
We've only ever just had awful luck with the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon, but so like the big cruisers actually getting so desperate in this movie that they're running out of fuel that they have to transfer it to the smaller passenger ships to send them out.
Right.
I love the way that the movie makes you think that Vice Admiral Holdo is kind of a dick, like she's doing something awful.
We can't get into her yet.
I don't know. I love that. And then it turns out like they had a plan. They didn't let. I wonder why they didn't let Poe know.
Well,
why didn't they just tell him?
You're jumping too far forward.
Can I, before we get too far, like we're talking about a rousing discussion about fuel, but before we get too far away from that, which I'm chiding. I actually find that to be very interesting. But I mean, what we're talking about overall is like the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, that interaction between the First Order ship and the Resistance ship and all that's going on there, basically like a golf cart race, I find that scene as a whole to be a metaphor for like the entire movie, like, or as I guess a symbol for the entire movie. Like there's basically nothing happened. Like it's basically one golf cart chasing another, and they're both running on low battery. Like it's such, but at the same time, like there's all this suspense and everything else, but basically nothing's happening. For me, that's the entirety of the movie. Like every single thread that you trace, basically nothing happened. Like there's only a few things that of consequence that actually occurred throughout the movie, and I don't think that's like a negative thing in my mind. Like it's just
real.
Yeah, like
this movie basically played out in real time.
Yeah,
so
that's
very
and close to it.
I love that basically all of the traditional things that you get behind that you're like, like let's do this. Almost every single one of those ends up with somebody pulling the rug out from underneath of you, and like you're basically no further along than you thought you were. So everything that you expect is turned on its head, and I think that truly is what, at its core, this movie did. It turned everything on its head. What you expected was not what happened.
Right.
Yeah, that was totally Ryan Johnson. So Poe, his interaction with Hux at the beginning.
Oh, that's awesome. Right out the gate, we have comic relief in a very stressful situation.
Yes.
It's
I like comic relief, but they're getting, and I will say overall in this movie, I felt like, at least in the first half, it gets a little too Marvel-y. like a little too
Well, there's-
Marvel movies type. Because I mean, I laughed hysterically when he made the call to Hux. Like I thought it was hilarious, but thinking back on it now, it's like, I mean,
It's
you're making a phone call to him, and it's like, is General Hux there? And it's like he makes a "your mom" joke. It's like,
Yeah, there were a few anachronisms in there, but I mean, think about The Force Awakens.
That's
Poe
his
made
character.
a joke at Kylo Ren. He's like, I can't really hear you. Am I supposed to talk? Are you
Right,
talking
yeah.
right now?
yeah, and I
then
love that.
You have
it's Poe's
Han
character.
Solo
It isn't out of
basically being
character.
that same character.
Yeah,
I will
I
say
don't
that-
hate it. There were some comedic parts that I thought were too over the top. I thought that one was towing the line just because it's too like
No, Poe's
prank
character-
call type.
Poe's
joke,
character
but-
never does anything out of character. Like that is something he would have done, and it made sense.
Right.
I feel like the Porgs, and if we're talking about comic relief and how the movie had sort of
Yeah.
a little bit too much. Like it definitely had some gratuitous
green boob milk.
Yeah, it had some it had some gratuitous like comedic relief that we didn't need all of it. Like it got to be too much. Like the Porgs getting freaked out that Chewbacca was roasting and eating one of them. Like I don't know. Like
If they had ended that scene with Chewbacca just looking down, being like, "Oh," and then just turning and taking a big old chomp out of it,
It would've been
like that
okay.
would have been more. I mean,
but then they
that would
have
have that joke would have worked, and it would have been more in Chewie's character, in my opinion. He's like,
but
I
then
don't
they
give a
still
shit
had
about these things.
they dragged the Porgs on even further.
Oh
which
yeah, the Porgs didn't matter. They were basically
they
just
had 'em-
merchandising.
but they had them. Yeah, they had the comic relief with.
So what I heard about the Porgs, and this could be hearsay, but was that there were puffins all over this island where they were trying to shoot, and obviously they can't remove them for animal rights reasons,
They had to put
And
them in
so-
the movie and then CG over 'em.
and so they had to work them in somehow.
What
and
are puffins?
yeah, I think maybe
little penguins.
puffins are like baby penguins,
Little
basically.
sea birds.
Yeah.
They're like.
This is a family
they're
show.
really-
Sometimes babies cry in the middle of it. But when you
Yeah.
said puffins, my first thought was, isn't that some sort of Pokemon?
No, it's kind of like a miniature penguin bird. Like I don't know, they've kind of got like
They
like
can
these.
fly underwater. It's awesome.
Just look it up. Sorry, I can't explain it right now. but
they
they're
like
baby,
fly through water
Google
and they're
it.
really small,
All right.
and they can also like.
I
think they
believe
can
you.
Fly in the air too, like.
But okay, so on the topic of comedic stuff, there's one scene that I loved. It was another rug pulling out deal. I'm curious as to you guys' opinion because I kind of go back and forth on it. The whole Luke taking the lightsaber from Rey and the whole giant scene that we set up, this big epic moment, and he's just like, "Yep, screw that," throws it over his shoulder. I don't know. There's a part of me that loves it. There's a part of me that's like, I don't know how I feel about it.
Initially, the reaction that I had to it was I was kind of frustrated by that.
Yeah.
Like in real time, the first time I saw that, I was like, I understand like that they made a choice here, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I think I've kind of shifted my opinion a little bit after having digested the movie a couple of times.
Yeah.
And though I still maybe don't love it, like to another degree, I really appreciate it because it leads into the rest of his character, and
I
it
feel
also
like they could have done it differently.
That's what
like
I
it
was
was a
gonna
little
say.
too
Yeah.
funny.
comedic.
Like
Yeah.
it could have been funny, like he just takes it, throws it to the side or something. They're throwing it over his shoulder. It's not a natural move. That's a move that you do
No.
just for comedic value. Like it was a little
Yeah,
too funny for me. For
I was
Luke's
gonna
character.
say that,
think
that
that's what-
same general thing. Like if I posed it, if it was presented differently, Nathan, if he had looked at it, sort of made a face at it, reached out at it,
Maybe
reached
threw it
out-
back to her.
If he had taken it, looked at it, and then sort of threw it angrily or something, like
Yeah.
in a
To
more
the
of a
side?
natural. If he'd have been like,
Yeah.
you know what? Nah, like I don't want. I'm out of this. I'm not. I left for a reason. I don't want to
Right.
train another Jedi. Instead, he just literally grabs it, doesn't even acknowledge, like has it in his hands for 2 seconds, and then he's
Right.
arching it over
Yeah.
behind him. Which again, yeah, it's not a natural thing to do.
Right.
The
It's
other
not
thing
something
that I
you do
thought
when you're
about
mad
when I
about
saw
something. It's not.
It was almost, and I can see why. I'm not mad about it, but I know a lot of people are, and I think that they're not necessarily wrong because it's basically, it almost felt like Ryan Johnson being like, everything that you thought, or everything that, not even what you thought, what you wanted, yep, we're just screw that. We're gonna make a big joke out of it. Like
In a
I can
way.
see how it could be taken that way. I didn't necessarily feel that way, but
So the other thing that I thought about after giving it some consideration was go back to again the second of the original trilogy, and when Luke is introduced to Yoda, he throws stuff, including a lightsaber, over his back,
right.
and so it introduces the fact that Luke is this movie's Yoda.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, I guess I have a differing opinion of all three of you, because when I was sitting watching it the first time, that's exactly what I wanted him to do.
I was about
Because
to say
I had
that
already,
too, actually.
I wanted him to be Yoda in this.
Right.
Because, like, that's kind of what happens when you exile yourself to a remote planet and live off the land there. You kind of go a little crazy. And that's exactly what I wanted him to do. And yeah, the throwing it over your shoulder is not a natural move. And I think that was the point.
Well,
like, that was, like, he could have just threw it down or handed it back to her, or threw it off to the side or whatever that
Or
was
walked
more
away.
natural. But that was, like, a specific thing that he did. He made eye contact with her. He looked at it, and then he threw it over his back like, nope, that's gone. And he made it like a specific point.
I enjoyed that, and I like that he did it. And in a way, it was a little bit too animated from what I thought it was going to be. But
right, and that, I mean, the lightheartedness of it is the main issue that I had with it. And to me, you brought up Yoda. I think the main difference there is that when we meet Yoda for the first time, as long as we're not watching these from 1 to 7, we don't know who Yoda is, and the reveal of Yoda makes that all make sense, because he's just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, Luke is the guy that we've been waiting to see this whole time, and for him to present himself as a funny Yoda, don't care about anything type of thing, is kind of off-putting.
Yeah, but then you throw in the question of, like, Dan, for us, we didn't know who Yoda was, but for kids who maybe see the trilogy of the prequels and then this one they do. So I don't know. It kind of does introduce an interesting perspective shift, because we're used to thinking of it in kind of an odd order.
For better or for worse, prequel Yoda is canon. And so, like Nathan said, kids growing up now who watch the prequels and the originals, they'll see Yoda in the prequels as just this wizened old Jedi master,
just sad for them,
who then goes off and exiles himself to this planet, and like that will be the norm for them.
You're right. The prequels never should have happened. But as far as the comedic stuff goes, a little too much of it. How'd you guys feel about the caretakers, the nuns of the island?
Where
were they in the beginning? Like,
where
did they just randomly show up?
I was feeling a number of things at this point in the movie. Like, my first viewing, I was still struggling with my internal dialogue of, like, I don't know. Like, I understood what they were going for, and I wasn't quite there yet. And so by the time they were introduced, I was just like, what? Really?
Right. You're still like, I don't know how I feel. And then it's like, here's these
my
things.
second. Yeah. And then I had another thought, which was like, those caretaker characters, like if you're a fan of anime, like they scream anime. And that made me realize, like, a lot of the other elements that were going on kind of mirrored some anime tropes. And so I think my first viewing, it kind of got me shifting my perspective a little bit. Yeah. And then my second viewing, I think I saw.
Feel.
What's that?
It gave me a very Studio Ghibli feel of, like, the nuns and everything.
Exactly. And I'm still not sure how I feel about them, but at least, like, I've maybe digested them a little bit more to try to accept them.
Yeah, for me, it kind of pulled me out of it a little bit, but I can't say that I didn't laugh at some of the, like, when she cuts down the rock and almost falls on him. Yeah, like,
exactly.
It makes me wonder if there were scenes cut where they were introduced, like, at an earlier point, and then they just kind of filled that in with, ooh, who are they? Oh, they're the caretakers. Because, like, I guess logically speaking, it would make sense to me that if there's a Jedi temple here, there would be caretakers besides the Jedi Master to help.
Hasn't that Jedi temple been empty for years and years, though?
It was abandoned.
Most Jedi temples are, though.
Also, my first thought I'm remembering actually was that she was having hallucinations, and so I thought it was really funny because, like,
I thought that too.
We've never seen creatures like this in her hallucinations. In my mind, it was like, oh wow, she's really hallucinating. But
It
then
looked like she was even
Yeah.
like the camera effect
Yeah.
and stuff.
It
And
feels
Yeah.
weird.
it was
and
definitely
now
weird.
after having seen it a couple times and digesting more, like I guess I'm seeing like basically what it's telling me is there's a lot more to this Force garbage than we know. Plus, it's not just the Jedi who own it to a certain degree. Like these people have been taking care of the island for thousands of years, and like aren't they just as owners of
Entitled
the
to it.
Force? Like the Jedi are not the only people.
Well,
I just would have liked to see them beforehand, before this point, because
Yes.
she's on that island for like a day or two
Right.
before they
Yeah.
show up.
and
Exactly.
I mean, in The Force Awakens, you see a flyover of the whole island. It's like this empty, barren
Yeah,
wasteland
where was
island.
that
Like,
shit?
I mean,
Yeah.
beautiful scenery, but
Yeah.
there's nobody there. You don't see any temple. You don't see any caretakers floating around. You don't see
We
any.
see the X-wing
porgs.
underwater, and it's like, no, he should have made her like try to take it out.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
much
I
as
know,
that would,
that's what
as
I
much as that would be a ripoff of Empire Strikes Back, that's
It would
it's
freaking
it's almost
sweet, though.
like he built it up so that you're like, that's gonna happen, and we
And then
all
it does.
kind of wanted it, and then he's still just like, nah, screw it.
Also, what the hell was that little portal on the island? Why did the island have a dark side hole in it? Like,
What was
Well,
that?
I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that always what you thought whenever you saw the cave on Dagobah?
yes,
like,
but honestly, over the years, I've sort of decided that maybe like Yoda
Kind of an
set that
hallucination.
up. Maybe like Yoda didn't just go to Dagobah for no reason. It had training purposes. Maybe he knew of this. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's why this Jedi temple is where it is. But there's light and dark on that island apparently.
yeah.
But
And
maybe
Yoda,
the same with
though-
Dagobah
Yeah,
Swamp.
yeah, because Dagobah
I mean,
doesn't seem like
clearly.
this cheery, happy island where Jedi used to live.
No.
It's just like this place where
Yeah.
Yoda ended up in
Yeah.
this wasteland,
in the
and
caves.
so
In the
anything could
cave
be there.
sequence of Empire, in the cave sequence of Empire, though, Yoda, he doesn't necessarily encourage him, but he doesn't like get mad at him or stop him from going into the
Yeah,
cave
right.
either.
Well,
he merely just says,
he
"You
nudges
won't
him
need
forward.
your lightsaber in there."
Only what you
But
take
when
with you.
we see Rey going through and trying to experience the
Yeah.
Force
Yeah,
with
she
the
did
guidance
what Luke
of
should have
Luke,
done.
Luke like gets pissed
But
off
she
at her
did-
for like, you immediately went to the dark side, like just like immediately goes after her.
Yeah.
And Yoda didn't really do that. Like
Oh.
he didn't
Yeah,
even get
even
mad
though-
that Luke brought in his lightsaber into the cave when he told him not to.
Yeah, Luke made a
Yeah,
mistake.
and he fought against Darth Vader, whom
Right.
Yoda had been telling him like you shouldn't do this yet. Like he pretty much did the exact opposite of what Yoda told him to in this practice run type thing. And yeah, you don't see Yoda react in the same way, but you do see him react because after this, Yoda basically pulls back and he's resigned himself because he knows Luke has set himself on his course and he's not going to change his mind. So from then on, you see Yoda just basically quiet down and just resign to becoming one with the Force. Like from that point, there's a shift in his character. He's no longer training. He's just like, well, you know what? This is the way it is.
Yeah, I feel like that shift in Empire was so much smoother than what they did here. Like, it's just like Luke is. I wanted him to be an angry, crotchety old man, but it's like we're doing these funny things with like the fish and all that stuff. Like, we're making him into this weird old man that doesn't really match up with his character that much. Maybe it does. I don't know. Not really gonna make that argument, but can we talk real quick before we get into any further stuff? Okay, so Chewie comes with her to the island apparently, and because he busts down the door, assuming that Luke wasn't standing behind it and he was about to kill him. But
That would kill him.
so Chewie comes in and he makes his presence, and then he literally just hangs out on the island for the next 3 days
With the porgs. Yeah.
like
Millennium Falcon.
what is he doing that whole time? We only see him with the porgs the one time.
Hey,
and
they
then
weren't
he's just
there.
around.
That's the point I want to
suppose it
stress.
probably wasn't that
How in the
long, but-
world if it's they weren't there that long?
Well,
Like,
they make it seem like she went through a couple trainings though. Like
Yeah,
she
like-
convinces him
like
to
2
train
days.
her, and
like, they were there
she
for like
gets a little
2
bit of
or 3 days, not even 3 full days.
right.
Because that's the thing I think is the weirdest about the way that the originals do and these are doing with the Jedi training. They think like they make it to where it's like, okay, yeah, our hero Luke trains. He only actually trains probably for a handful of days with
Yeah.
Yoda, and then he goes off and does his thing, and then Yoda tells him, "No more training do you require." Well, okay, But back in the day, we used to raise these
Right.
kids from
Yeah.
It
very
never
young
worked out,
age,
though.
and until
And
they
if
were.
you-
They had very long training processes back then. It's like, I just feel like, yeah, obviously they're not going to be that long now because we're discovering our Force-sensitive characters at later ages.
It's also not going to be that long because we're in a freaking hurry because the galaxy is falling apart. So we got to get
Right.
back there
Right.
and make it happen.
Right, but I mean,
Nathan
That was
and I
actually
have
like
had
a
this discussion.
deliberate thing that was described by Lucas. Because I am a geek, I've sought out some of those.
oh, you're a geek? Bro,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I've sought
He works for
out
the
some
Geek
of those
Squad.
extra documentaries and stuff like that. And as much as I think Lucas is a flawed director and dialogue writer, like he is a visionary. He has really good ideas, and he does think about what he's doing. He just needs a team around him to develop them and refine them. But what I'm getting at is like, even down to some of the things that for me, before I understood what he was going for, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, like the lightsaber duels, like the one we see between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan versus the one that we see between Obi-Wan and Anakin, like the same two people, just, like 20 years removed.
Right,
like
right.
it
They
kind
got
of
really
bothered
old
me.
really fast.
Yeah. And then like things like what you're talking about, like Luke basically trained for like a quick 48 hours, and like we see Anakin, being said, well, you're too old. And then like he was supposed to have trained basically since you could walk, like all these things that we see changing. Like Lucas was thinking about these deliberately, and like the reason why the lightsaber duels are not as involved is because they would
They're
have
not as
trained
trained.
for yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Like, I think you and I have had this discussion before, Nathan, and that's actually where it all breaks down is they stopped training in them the way they used to be. Like you said, Anakin was taken when he was still a young boy, but like far older than what he would have been to be a Jedi. And then against Jedi protocol, we have Qui-Gon who's taking on another Padawan when he already had one. And it was before that, like, it was a master to a Padawan, and his Padawan was Obi-Wan. Well, he stopped training Obi-Wan and started training Anakin, then he dies.
Only because they determined that Obi-Wan was ready for the trials. He was to become a Jedi
But he
Knight.
wasn't.
Let's
He
talk
was
about The
still an
Last Jedi.
Yeah, it's all part of this.
We're getting there.
We're talking about
Shut
the
up,
fact
Dan.
that
This is a big side tangent.
Luke trains
This is
for
how
2
Star Wars
days.
conversations
Luke
go.
trains for a couple days and then he's done. And then Rey trains for a couple days and then she's apparently ready. But I mean,
That's the point.
The point
Yeah.
of these two characters is that Kylo Ren and Rey are the two most Force-sensitive characters, besides apparently Snoke, to come into the picture.
He's not even that force sensitive, apparently. He can't tell.
Well,
his
we can talk about
training.
that.
Also,
He's gonna
the-
slice him in half.
The argument
Unless
that
he already knew that was going to happen, unless he had a plan in place, unless he is actually Darth Plagueis, which I think he is.
the
And
And we'll
be.
find out at the next episode.
Dan thinks that they're
movie,
not
I
even
guess.
going to explain that.
we're not there yet. The argument that Rey is she didn't go through enough training. It's like, well, clearly she's more force sensitive than Luke was, which is blasphemy for some reason.
And more so
But-
than Kylo Ren.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like,
Almost, yeah.
she trained. I mean, whether or not she trained for more or less days with a master than Luke did doesn't matter, because she was fighting her nemesis in the last movie and holding her own. Like, she's clearly got
beat
this
him.
stuff figured out a lot earlier than Luke ever did. So for her to have
but also don't
a day or two with
forget
Luke
that.
isn't going to really make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I guess
Can
don't
I,
forget that like Kylo was like seriously injured and also divided because
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was at a disadvantage because not only Rey but Finn, like who had combat training for sure, and evidently he was at like the top of his class, but like he held his own against Kylo, and so I mean it didn't. I don't know if the movie did a great job of illustrating like that he was not at his peak, and like a lot of people complained, if you remember,
He was
because
running an empire, so
yeah,
Dude, but
like
oh man, the kick-ass scene in
a lot
the
of
throne
people
room.
complained because this star, this stormtrooper was holding his own with a lightsaber, which a lot of people were like, oh, you have to be force sensitive to operate a lightsaber.
No,
So like
you
there's
do
a
not.
lot of
Oh, they
It's
have,
never been
they
that
have
way.
an on-off switch. Anybody can
Yeah.
turn it on.
Never
Yeah,
been that way. You have
So-
to be a Jedi. You have to be force sensitive to make a
Right.
lightsaber.
You don't have
right?
to be an
That's
electrician
not
to turn on a
true.
light switch. So
Turn on. I want to take it back a minute and talk about something that, like, I just personally like. I don't know if other people like it or not, but I like the use of memory changes in this movie. When we hear
Different perspectives. You
of
mean?
like, first Luke gives a recount of like what happened that night, why Kylo went crazy and killed everything, and then went off to Snoke. Like, we see like just, oh, Kylo just, he went crazy and he pulled down the building on Luke, and then when Luke awoke, everything was on fire, and oh, it was awful. Then we see Kylo, who
saw it
from his
differently.
perspective, see his perspective. We see Luke with a lightsaber ready to kill him
if you
with
were Kylo
fire in
Ren,
his eyes.
You can,
He's
if you
right.
If you
He's
put yourself in
justified.
Kylo Ren's eyes, you can sort of justify being like, I want to find
He was
Luke
defending
Skywalker.
himself.
I want to find him and kill him because he was going to kill me in
Well,
my
yeah.
sleep. What kind of guy does that?
not only that, but you can justify his turn to the dark side because he's like, I have these powers. I'm looking for a way to amplify them and build my ability. And this guy
And
just
the only
tried to kill me, so I'm going to go with the other guy.
That's what
And then
I
we
think
finally
the whole
have
point of this new
Luke
trilogy.
telling the truth.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Cole.
No, I kind of interrupted you too. I think the whole point of this new trilogy is to outline the gray area and be like, the Jedi are wrong, the Sith are wrong.
Right.
We need a balance. That's been what we've been looking for so long,
Sure.
is a balance. And
For
so
sure.
just
And
just
we
as
have
Rey,
that whole,
go ahead.
like, we have that whole like no you hang up, series of interactions, and even that is like it. I mean, not only is it, I guess, hinting at a romantic, connection that I don't know, where that's coming from, but we're seeing basically like her literally flirting with the dark side, and that hint of light that has always been an element of Star Wars, and so like,
Can I come at that from a female perspective real quick? And I'm just talking like on a
As a female,
like
you
a
don't have a
personal
voice.
level.
I'm just kidding.
Sure. Like, this is just a personal level, so I can't speak for all women everywhere. That's dumb. But Rey has this power now that she has no idea what to do with. And Luke basically has done nothing but yell at her and demean her this entire time. And this was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be like her savior. Like, he was supposed to tell her what to do. He was supposed to come and fight with the resistance, and he's been just obstinate the entire time. Now we have a guy who has the same powers as her.
I was going to say the same thing.
More along with it than she is, around her age, and like kind of showing interest in her too. Yeah, of course she's going to like
Have
not
some
necessarily
sort of
fall for this guy,
attraction.
but have some sort of feeling for this guy.
You're the only
Like,
person I
'cause
can
you're
talk to
going
about
through.
this.
Nobody
and-
else understands what she's going through.
Another thing we see, which I find very interesting, is every time Rey interacts with Kylo in that sense, in that I guess ability,
Regard.
yeah, he is completely calm and open.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you never see him lose his temper when
I wonder
they're
why the
talking.
Force is connecting us like that. You murderous snake!
Yes, she's always reacting like in a very like, well, at least at first she's reacting in a very violent way, and he's just calm and open. He's like, yes, like, and he's asking questions, but like, I think that's one of the things that, again, like, she makes her question. Like, Luke is off his rocker, and he's violent, and he's reacting in weird ways, and Kylo, who is supposed to be the bad guy in this monster, he's calm, he's open, he's honest, like,
Because he isn't.
So
she's realizing that there isn't just bad and good.
Right.
It's not how it works. Everything
and
isn't just one or the
consequently-
other. And this movie is absolutely, I think its goal is to outline and show that
It's all perspective.
Kylo, everything is perspective. Yeah, Kylo, has his reasons for the things he's done and the decisions he's made, and he's been influenced by both the dark and the light. He sort of represents more of the dark, and Rey rises in the light to meet him, and they balance each other. And that's kind of the moment that in the Force bridge between the two, and they're connecting. Yeah, Rey is lashing out at first, and then literally by the third time they're interacting, they're just talking like
They're just talking.
sort of
Yeah.
like old friends. And honestly, I love it. I love it so much that I don't think that there needs to be a romantic thing. And maybe obviously they're gonna have
I'm fine with
confused
it either way.
feelings.
I
Because
don't care.
he's a guy, she's a girl. They're the only two like each other.
Mhm.
they're gonna be a little bit. It's gonna
Connected.
have weird. It's gonna have weird romantic baggage, but
And it's gonna piss Finn right the hell off, and that's gonna be funny.
But then what
It
if
needs-
you find out like? But here's the thing that I can't get away from. So, you've got all these romantic lines that are
Yeah.
conflating in this
Yeah.
movie. But
Rose and
let,
Finn.
let me just
Go
draw
a little
you
bit linear here.
let me draw you a little picture here, okay? So you've got these two characters who you're like, oh wait, there might be something there. There's maybe a spark there, and you've got all these questions, and you're like, well, maybe they touch fingers, like oh my god, like there's this like let's rule the empire together. Okay, if you can try to have like selectively forgetful memory, okay. In the second of the original trilogy, we see Leia give Luke this kiss, and you're like, wait a minute, her and Han were a thing. And you're like, whoa, okay, like there's another thread. And for the next, couple of years, you got yourself, all these people shipping about these different characters.
Right. You don't know.
In the next movie, in the next movie, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're siblings.
Right.
Like, so we
And
cannot
then the next
forget
movie after that, Han and Leia are married and separated.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. So we can't forget, like there's definitely like this kind of, except for the prequels, which were just boring and like I love you, you're an angel, and all this. But
sand is coarse and gets everywhere.
you do have this kind of MO to like mess with you on this level of like anticipation, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we find out something crazy like that in the next movie. That's like what?
Okay. Before we get too deep into like, I mean, we're going really into the weeds.
Love
I mean,
triangles.
like I want to talk about like they showed what happened with Luke and Kylo, which I didn't think they were going to. I figured Disney sometime down the line they'd make an in-between movie where they try it and make that make sense. How that all went down. I feel like Rian Johnson captured that, explained that so quickly, so well, so to the point. It doesn't have to be another 2-hour movie to explain. Like they just showed like 2 seconds of this happened, and you're like, oh, yeah, that all makes sense now. Because I mean, between The Force Awakens and this, we were all like, or yeah, whatever. We were all like, how in the world did he screw it up that bad?
It's
He's
really
Luke Skywalker.
It's really just before this point, before they revealed Kylo's version of the story and Luke's version of the story, which both of which completely they check out. They both line up. They're just two different perspectives, and they both have very good reasons for what they thought and why they, the outcome that it took. Obviously, if I was Kylo Ren, I would have been pretty freaked out. Right. And if I'm Luke and I saw what I saw in his future, I'd have been pretty freaked out.
Makes sense on both sides.
So, exactly, and just the. Oh, wow, I totally lost my train of thought there. But anyways, like Luke deciding that he might try to, do something about changing the future, and then Kylo being like, "Oh my God, this guy was going to try to kill me."
Right.
It just makes sense that.
Yeah, I think that was done very, very well.
Yeah.
One point that I've heard raised, which I think is hilarious, is how crappy of a person was Luke that. Okay, so this all goes down, and Kylo or Ben goes to these other people because a bunch of people left with him. He goes up to them and he's like, "Hey, Luke just tried to kill me," and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." And they all just leave with him. Like, how bad of a master was he at that point that they're just like, that makes sense.
Well, the whole thing.
Right.
The whole
You just
thing
raised another good point that I forgot about. Where are these other people?
Yeah.
Because they're
Knights
also
of Ren.
force
Who are they?
sensitive.
Yeah, if they don't bring that up in the next one, which
I
it's
agree.
J.J. Abrams, so it will come up because he's the one who set that up.
They're also force sensitive. So where are they?
Well, there's a theory.
What's going
There's
on?
a theory that the vision
Guards.
that Rey has when she first touches the lightsaber, where the Knights of Ren are there around Kylo or those people, that hasn't come to pass yet. Because the whole sequence with the Force when she touches the lightsaber for the first time at Maz Kanata's place, she sees past, present, near future, and far future.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's what that is. And then I remembered what I was going to say a little bit ago. The story of Kylo Ren, and we just think in The Force Awakens we're like, whoa, he just got arrogant and broke away from the Jedi Order. He must have thought he was too good for it.
He went Lucifer on his ass.
It's Lucifer. It's the biblical narrative of Lucifer, and then getting some angels to leave with him. Like
Yep.
So we thought a lot of us probably, because this story has been told, retold, and retold over and over again since the beginning of time, that, the student gets arrogant and leaves, basically the Lucifer story is
like
kind of
unjustified.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
like a cocky douchebag.
he's just bad.
Yeah.
But then, so we all I think we all probably thought, well, Kylo just thought he was too good for it and lashed out and left because he was being influenced by the dark side too. And so he's just a Luciferic version, of, if that's even a word. He's like Lucifer, and he took some guys with him, just like Lucifer did with the angels. But I'm really glad that it turned out to be like, no, there's two sides of the story.
That's great.
So the point of the Last Jedi is that it's satanic, is what you're saying.
No.
Yes.
No, but the point of it is to
Kylo
is
Ren's
to show,
lightsaber, if you look at it in the posters, is an upside down cross. Just saying.
Yeah, there you go.
My God.
I think the point of the Last Jedi is to show that there just isn't a clear right and wrong and good and evil. They balance each other. You can have a little bit of both. And just as Rey demonstrates when, as we were saying earlier, she went right to the dark side in Luke's words, but she didn't come with any baggage like he did when he went into the cave. He took his blaster. He took his lightsaber. He took fear. He took everything he shouldn't take into the trial. But when Rey did it, she was just curious. She was just looking. She needed answers. She didn't take weapons with her when she went down.
Yeah.
I don't think so. When she went down to that like ice mirror glass thing, and was just asking and didn't get any answers. But
what were you guys? What was running through your mind as she's like waiting for the figure to walk forward in the reflection? I was like, oh, they could go so many ways with this. It could be Ewan McGregor or something.
I was thinking Mirror said like Harry Potter type.
Yeah,
thing, like
I can't recall like exactly what I was thinking like as it happened, because I imagine there's so many thoughts flowing through your mind. But I guess like as I don't know, as it was walking up, like I think in the back of my head, like there was this thought that like beings that they're in the shadows, like I don't know, I kind of felt like we weren't going to find out.
I thought it was just going to be like a dark manifestation of the Force, just like that she has to confront, that would just break through and shatter and be like, oh, okay, that's not good. Like I thought it was going to be like as the way that Luke had when he turns the corner and then Vader's coming out.
My thought was for sure it was like two figures at first, and I thought for sure it was going to be a family reveal of some sort, and it was, which I said in the Star Wars episode, I want her to be a nobody. I want her to be something new.
We did say that.
And I was so stoked that she supposedly
so
isn't.
far.
Yeah, so
to
far.
this point.
Like Kylo literally said that you're a nobody.
Unless he's lying for his own.
Well, we'll get to that, but I was expecting it to be like a reveal of parents, and then they merged together, and I was like, it's gonna be
kind of like
it's gonna be her
Harry
or
Potter
Kylo Ren, one of the two.
Yeah, that's what
I think that's what I thought when they merged. I thought it was either A, going to be Kylo Ren, or B, like I really thought they were going to go like midichlorians route, and I was I was really anxious.
They merged together. It's just like the word midichlorians shows through. It's like we don't know what this is. We don't know what to do with this.
Super anxious because I'm like, no, one parent. You're not going that route. Like I just thought saw Shmi Skywalker, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Well, it's very mirrored of the Empire Strikes Back too, when like the mask of Darth Vader opens when he cuts off his head and it's Luke's face. Like, that's exactly what it's mirroring. There is like, it doesn't matter who your parents are.
Right.
It's almost as though it's like that same point that it's coming to is like, you need to define yourself, who you are in relation to the Force, and like decide. Like for Luke, it was kind of his greatest fear of like, I'm turning into the person I hate, and for Rey, it was kind of that fear of like, I am nobody. Like I think for both of them, they were kind of confronting their personal demons to a certain degree.
Yeah. Now we gotta talk about my favorite point of the movie, which is only because I am a fanboy whore, but freaking Yoda is in this movie. My favorite character of all time. And
as a puppet.
So I'm going to say now, spoiler alert, guys. But
I think I'm going to express the least popular opinion in that I don't think Yoda needed to be in this movie.
I
enjoyed him a little bit, but
I enjoyed him so much.
It wasn't. I don't know. Like, I'm glad he was, but
I don't tear up
think he was
much.
in a little.
So
I didn't tear up when my babies were born, but Yoda.
Did
I
Obi-Wan
think
need to be in episode 5? Like
What?
talking to Yoda. Did Obi-Wan need to be in episode 5 talking to Yoda?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's totally
I
a
think
parallel of that.
I also think it emphasizes that Yoda or Luke also himself still needs a little bit of training
Yeah.
when it comes to being a
Oh, yeah.
master.
He at
Like,
least needs a
Oh,
shaking
I
up.
love the points that Yoda made. I love that. I mean, I love that, and it goes along with the point of shed the old, get rid of it. Do you need those
whole-
books? Do you need
You're
those old
probably
Jedi
wrong,
books?
bro.
Have you even read them? Like,
Oh, I
and
love
it
that.
and it makes the allusion to like
Real
our own
page turners they
religion.
were, eh?
Yeah, it makes the comparison to like the actual real world religion. Like, do these holy books, are they really something we need to follow to a T? Can we forge our own path in our our beliefs? Is everything so cut and dried? No.
Right.
And I think that's what, or I mean, no to to that. Everything's not so cut and dried, and things are open to interpretation. It's not the old Jedi ways. Clearly, they didn't work. Good and evil are not what we thought they were.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Yoda's role is to show Luke that, and to show the viewer that even Yoda, the pinnacle of good in the bright light of Jedihood, is rethinking that. He's basically saying, yeah, like it's not really important. Maybe we should let go of that old stuff.
Yeah, and in a similar way, I mean, Yoda's there to shake up Luke and be like, dude, get your act together. And I didn't have anything to say on what exactly we're talking about, but I agree and I like it. To parallel Empire a little bit, Obi-Wan Kenobi comes in, he tells Yoda, was I so old when you taught me? Like, he's like, Yoda's like, nah, this is stupid, I don't want to do this. And Obi-Wan Kenobi comes in, he's like, dude, remember, this is the Jedi. It's a good time. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. And I thought it was great. I'm a little confused by if Force ghosts are able to strike lightning and light something up on fire. Why don't we have a big army of Force ghosts that are taking down the Empire right now?
It's Yoda. I mean, Yoda had almost 1,000 years of physical life to study under the
midichlorians.
Force.
I think
And
the other
then
thing
so
is,
many years as being one with the Force. I'm
Sure.
gonna imagine that Yoda can do.
It's not a
kick-ass
fault
shit.
for me. It raised some questions.
I think both. I mean, I think Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke, we see becoming one with the Force in peace, and like so they resign themselves to this peace, and like they're balanced or whatever. So I think like them constantly interfering with like the affairs of the people who are still a part of the mortal coil. Like I feel like that would be diminishing their peace. Like so I think like they show up at opportune times, like communicating and like doing things that are important like to their pupils, but like I don't know. I think it would be weird to see them continuing to meddle when they're supposed to be at peace.
It doesn't seem like that's something the Force would allow anyway, because
right.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like we can speculate all we want.
It was mostly a joke.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, don't joke about Star Wars.
Also, the notion there are very few Jedi that actually knew how to do that. So
yeah.
You had to
you're definitely
throw lightning because they were only the bad guys.
No, there are only a few Jedi who knew how to. The first Jedi to ever discover how to become one with the Force, like I was talking to you earlier, was Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And then he taught Obi-Wan and Yoda, so Yoda and Obi-Wan knew how, and apparently Yoda or Obi-Wan somehow revealed this to Luke.
Is the only reason why we haven't seen Qui-Gon yet because they can't afford Liam Neeson?
Well, they got Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher all in one.
Qui-Gon's
Yes. I was watching that and waiting for it to happen.
Qui-Gon's not like real diapers in this trash from your baby.
Yeah. So for the listeners, my cat just knocked over the garbage can in the background because he saw me throw away a lunch meat package earlier, and he's been gunning for it ever since. And Nathan and Jeanette's baby was at my house yesterday, so there's way too many diapers than are justifiable in my garbage can right now because she is a piss monster.
It's a tall trash can.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're just gonna leave them diapers in there for like how long, man?
We'll see.
Anyways, whatever.
Get your own garbage.
I don't think Qui-Gon's relevant to these stories. Like Dan mentioned earlier that you're pretty sure that they confirmed an Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan is confirmed.
An Obi-Wan movie in which covering the time that he's in exile. That'd be a perfect opportunity to see from Qui-Gon's Force ghost coming to Obi-Wan and teaching him how he became one with the Force.
That's true.
How he aged like 40 years and 20 years.
I know. Oh my God. Why is nobody talking about that? Like how Luke couldn't have been more than 17, 18, 19 years old. But,
no, I think he was between 17 and 21. I don't remember the exact timeline.
And yet all these characters are so much older in that time period. Like
especially Princess Leia, let's be honest.
You mean?
She had issues, though.
I know. That's something you can't avoid, but...
No, we're talking about from the prequel to the...
I was going to say for both, like, between...
Yeah.
I mean, I think The Force Awakens is supposed to be, like, the same amount of time, like 30 years after. It still seems like...
Well,
they jumped ahead, too.
The problem is that...
Obi-Wan Kenobi makes no sense.
Yeah. Luke and Leia were born at the end of Episode 3. 17 years later, Obi-Wan went from being 30 to 65.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little weird. I don't know what the heck happened there.
Yeah. I guess if you look at the presidents when they enter office and when they leave, they look like they've aged more than 8 years. So stress does things to a person.
To our knowledge, Obi-Wan Kenobi left as a young, youthful Ewan McGregor, and then he just hung out in, barren wasteland and caves for 20, 30 years.
So what I like to do in my head is I have to do a little justifying.
Yeah.
Episode 3, maybe he was in his mid-40s, and
that's a bit of a stretch.
What?
That he was in his mid-40s?
No, it's not. If he's like
McGregor
41, 42. No, as the actor, yeah, but Obi-Wan, let's say Obi-Wan must have been 42, 43, maybe just 40, whatever, at the end of Episode 3, and maybe Luke and Leia were about 20 by the beginning of A New Hope. So maybe he was almost 60-something. I don't know, but it does suck that it's like, okay, he's just ready to become one with the Force at the ripe old age of 60-something.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're at with Luke.
And Luke, he was not that old. What the heck?
Well, I mean, when you spend 20 years literally living in a cave...
You're ready to die.
It ages a person. Like,
it's
I don't know, I think I'd be ready to die.
It's almost like for Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke both, they're like... this life sucks. I'm ready to go at any point. And then they get one shot of action. They're like, all right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I can go out on that note. It's not a high note necessarily. Well, Luke's was. But Obi-Wan Kenobi's was, he was just a distraction, and he decided to go then.
If you strike me down, Darth, I shall become more powerful than you can imagine.
And Yoda was, like, literally just tired. Like...
I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Look, I so old to young eyes. Yes, I do.
Potatoes.
This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.